Hey to ChiroHustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 185 of the ChiroHustle podcast. I'm your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jed Emms, and if you want to know more about why Cradle-to-Grave care is so important, stay tuned. So we are live here with Dr. Jed Emms, and you're coming in today from the beautiful city of Michigan, Grand Rapids. And we are coming from the other grand city, which is Grand Junction. And we're up here in the beautiful state of Colorado. And as per our introductions, I just want to thank you for being a guest on our podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you know, one of the favorite parts of our interviews that we do is we get a chance to ask the chiropractors to tell us their chiropractic story and what influenced them to become a chiropractor. And I really don't know your story, even though I've gotten to know you over the past couple of years. So if you'd share with our audience today what your chiropractic story is and how you became a chiropractor, that'd be awesome.
Sure, will do. So I grew up in a pretty standard American family, you know, hardworking parents. Mom was a teacher. Dad kind of worked a lot of factory jobs. And I played a lot of sports. It was great to be able to play just about any sport that I wanted. Parents sent me to camps, you know, did all that stuff. And there's the point to which my chiropractic story started, but then there's also where it should have started. So we'll dive into those. You know, I don't fault my parents for anything. They try to do the best that they can, and everybody's going to do the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. However, when I was in school, in high school, I was a three-sport athlete. I played soccer, basketball, and tennis throughout the school year. That's how our sports went. And I was in a soccer game in the playoffs, and I did a slide tackle, and I remember jarring my lower back. And not long after, my mom took me to our little hometown chiropractor, in hometown meaning 2,200 people, not many. And so I remember going to him maybe 3 or 4 times or so, and he's like, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "Oh, I'm feeling great." You know, as a kid, it doesn't take you many adjustments to get better, or feel better, I should say. And so he's like, "All right, well, you know, you don't have to come back if you don't want to." Well, I went right into basketball season, no break. And everybody wants to talk about when they were in high school, right? So that's when I was 6'6", 220 pounds, a starting center, right? No, I was the smallest guy out there at 4'17", 4 feet, 17 inches. And grew a couple inches. But anyway, I took hits. You know, I drove to the lane. I was faster than anybody, so I would take hits, and I still had some issues that popped back up because nobody ever told me, or that chiropractor never told me how to maintain my body. So fast forward a little bit, moving in from basketball season, then next it's tennis for me. And one of the guys on the tennis team, both of his parents were medical doctors, and they always signed off on my physical without ever doing it, by the way. And I would go over to their house quite a bit. We'd just hang out, and I explained that I was still having some issues. So they gave me a couple of anti-inflammatories to take. So I'm in tennis season, taking 2 in the morning, 2 at night, just to kind of get through the day, and get through the tennis season, which my one little claim to fame athletically is I won state my senior year in tennis. And so after playing our state tournament, I didn't take these pills. I didn't play for a week. And then I went to go play a week later, and I go to serve, and you got to do a backwards arcing motion to serve. Well, I couldn't raise my arm backwards above my shoulder to serve. So my parents, we went through to, I don't know, my primary care doc or whoever that was, PT, I did all that. And thankfully, it was a different chiropractor that came into my mom's school where she taught, did some type of health talk. My parents got under care. My sister and I, which my sister is also now a chiropractor, there was just two of us, we got under care. And he's the one that gave me my full range of motion and everything back because, of course, as you and probably most people would know, they started adjusting my neck, freed up the nerves to go to my shoulder. And that's where everything kind of started right about as I was going from graduating high school and then into college. I played 1 year tennis in college, just one. And when I was going into college, into my undergrad, while I loved sports and I grew up in a teaching family, my mom, aunts, grandmas were in the school system. So I thought teaching would be kind of cool, but my mom just knew she wanted something better for me. So then for a while, ironically enough, to the complete side of this, when I picked my undergrad degree, or undergrad school, I picked it because they had a pharmacy school and an optometry school. Well, I learned pretty quickly I wasn't going to go to pharmacy school, but I was pretty set on the fact that I was going to go to optometry school. And, you're doing your bachelor's degree. And there was one time I was going back to the chiropractor that really helped me. And I guess I wasn't fully set on optometry school. I joke about it now, like, I don't know if I could sit there and say, is it better 1 or 2? I needed more interaction, more energy, more everything. And I remember going and getting adjusted, and the office was always so positive. People were happy. He had super high energy. And so we don't really know what he said exactly. We just know he's like, oh, yeah, you should go to chiropractic school. You should be a chiropractor. And it was about 2 months later, I went down to Life University and did a little weekend trip, I think, in August. And then not even but 6 weeks or 8 weeks later, I was going to chiropractic school in October. I think we started the first week in October. So from there, I just, we had the best quarter at Life. We had some great friends. Some of my best friends are now all chiropractors. And so that's how I got started. Now, where my story should have started was as a kid. For any mom, any parent really, you can thank my mom for 72 hours of labor. I am here. That was probably pretty traumatic. So my dad, supposedly, stories are, my dad went out to the bar because it was taking so long. And so I would imagine, without a doubt, that some type of subluxation was created when I was born. Well, what happens in my first month of life? Ear infection. Struggled with multiple ear infections, and everybody knows it's antibiotics. My mom can tell you to this day that 3 antibiotics that don't work on me. Of course, my body became immune to them. And so I know the amount or the pairs of tubes that I had. I had 6 pairs of tubes before 2nd grade, let alone individual ears and individual ear infections. And now I know that those all could have been prevented if my parents would have known to take me to a chiropractor. We have 3 kids, 0 ear infections. So you can't tell anybody that something's hereditary, right? And so the difference, I've adjusted my kids since they were born from the hour that they were born. And that's really what drives me, is to know that I still have some long-term scar tissue and damage in my ears. And sometimes I can't always hear somebody as well. And that's where we need to take what we know and keep teaching more people about the real benefits of chiropractic, and more than just an ear infection, a backache, headache, as you know. And that's part of what you guys are, I know you guys are out there. Really, the pun is there. It's a hustle, and there's a grind to this, and you just got to keep going and never give up.
My body feels like this, like, when you feel somebody's energy, like that story, man. It wasn't the high school sports, which are cool. I
Yep.
played too. And it wasn't the idea that, you were born because I was too. But, when I hear you tell these stories about the longevity game, about we have more work to do and that more people need access to chiropractic and it needs to be understood in the right premise. Like you understanding that, it's almost a rite of passage that kids should get checked for subluxation at birth.
Right.
And it should be a part of a practice within our culture that we want a healthier child. Because I've had these conversations a lot, Jed, and there's not anybody that's like, gosh, I wish my family were more sick, or I wish I could put them on another round of antibiotics, or I wish that they would get like ear infections so we could put tubes in. Like
Yep.
like those conversations, or I wish my kid had crooked teeth so he could get braces. Like you don't have those conversations. Like the wish is I want a healthier baby so we can sleep through the night. I want a fully developmental child so we can have easier chances of learning. And I think that what you're saying, man, and just think, you under chiropractic care from like I call it cradle to grave care. If you would have got it from cradle all the way, just think about how much um, healthier you would have been as an athlete. And we can't turn back the clock, but I know that now you have three kids that you're providing that care to them. So who knows? We always hear this analogy: the sky's the limit. Well, an unsubluxated spine makes the sky even more possible as the limit. And I think that you telling that story, it's going to touch some people's lives, and it touched mine. And I've done hundreds of interviews now with people, and just hearing that one bit of you telling the ear tube stories, it's going to touch somebody's going to hear that, and they're going to get their kids adjusted.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And the reality is this little hometown chiropractor who I went to. I can't put the blame on him, because the reality is that led me to a different chiropractor that inspired me to become a chiropractor. So who knows, if I was adjusted since birth, maybe I wouldn't have ever been a chiropractor. I don't know. So you have to understand we all go through life, and there's a reason why God does certain things. We just don't always understand why or when. And that's where you just have to start taking your message and keep teaching people what you know. Think of everything out there is about storytelling right now. You guys know this. Everything's going to start with a good story. But what's the best story? It's the one that never even has to happen. So the best story is the one that I should have never needed tubes. But that's what I was led, and maybe that's why God put me on earth, because now I can teach and help that many more people. So, this actually, the funny story is this hometown chiropractor I went to probably when I was about 10 or 12 for probably one or two adjustments, because I was throwing the football in the yard, and something happened. Well, something we know is obviously I got subluxated, where it caused my head to be tilted. So I'm playing cards at night with the family, and they're like, straighten your head out. I was like, what are you talking about? And they took me to this same chiropractor when I was probably 10 or 12, probably adjusted me once or twice and sent me up and out the door. So, but that's what I know we'll talk about probably too, is where's chiropractic going to be? Well, think of what's the evolution of chiropractic. I mean, nowadays people come in here, oh yeah, I go to a chiropractor. And like, when was the last time you were there? Like, oh, well, a year ago, 5 years ago. Maybe they're like, oh, I always go to the chiropractor and I go like every 6 months. And hey, no judgment based on your technique. Perhaps that is the case. But if you're a typical chiropractor in today's society, you probably can't hold your adjustment. Everything should go off of what your body's ability to hold the adjustment, right? And I think that's what's kind of been misled is you should be getting adjusted for how well you can hold your adjustment, or if you can even hold the adjustment, and then you base your frequency off of that. So anyway, a little tangent. We could get on some tangents. Keep going.
So, since becoming a chiropractor, what would you say makes you unique or sets you apart from other offices or doctors?
I want to tell you nothing. But really, what would be different about us is our ability to communicate and to engage and interact with somebody. I feel like there's nobody out there that's going to be able to care or connect with people better than me. I know that I can give them the best adjustments, so I tell them if they're going elsewhere, you're going to get the second best. Now, somebody could look at that as an egotistical way to like say that, and it's really not. Of course, we need more laughter in today's society. So I mean it more in a jokingly manner. But the fact of the matter is we're going to run a very efficient, effective office centered on their family. I do have a little special technique if that's now's the time to kind of mention that. So if I were to talk about a special niche, so to speak, or what might set us a little bit apart, is what I learned through a guy out of Canada. His name's Dr. Roger Turner, that does cranial adjusting. So in school, we learn about subluxations of the spine, and we might get a little bit of understanding about the head and skull, but I never really truly understood this until it was a friend of mine's son who was almost 2 years old, just a little shy of 2 years old, was not a chiropractic kid, adjusted from birth, not vaccinated, healthy organic foods, breastfed, all those things. But here he was almost 2, wasn't trying to talk. He was not walking. He barely crawled and lifted his head up. And now looking back, we understand there were some pretty severe misalignments or subluxations in his head and the cranial bones. And we had to get the pressure off his head. So through running EPOC, the Chiropractic Philosophy group that I ran, one of our speakers came in and knew Dr. Turner, learned some of the skills that he taught. And through one day of adjusting this little boy, he took his first steps walking around my adjusting table at almost 2 years old. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I got to check that out. And since then, and so this was probably 8 or 9 years ago now. Since then, my other friend, the mom of this boy, who is also a chiropractor, her and her husband both are, we now do a lot of cranial adjusting where we can really help some of the challenged kids. So while I have a large family, like wellness-based, subluxation-based, I've also got connected with certain types of people because of being known for all the cranial adjusting that we do.
So if you wouldn't mind, can you go into a little bit more about what it was like to host your own chapter of EPOC in your clinic?
Yeah. So we actually first hosted this at a hotel, not in our office, but of course I was in a different office than where we had you guys out. And so I really wanted to help unite the profession. I could see differences out there. When I was first in practice, my first 5 years in practice, I look back at all the seminars that I did. Granted, I did my whole ICPA certification. I did just about every seminar in chiropractic philosophy, learned business side of things. So I was gone a lot. I was gone on average 2.2 times per month in my first 5 years. Now, that was also prior to having kids, or right about when we started having kids too. So things had to shift a little bit, of course. But I was always, it seemed like I was always going, trying to better myself, try to figure out how I could help serve more people and do it better. So that's where I got connected with Dr. Troy Dukewitz, who founded the first chapter of EPOC out of St. Louis area. And EPOC stands for Epicenter of Chiropractic. It's similar to a Band of Brothers, similar to DE, and so on and so forth. And it was designed to try to help engage our local chiropractors within a couple of hours. Most people came within a couple of hours, some 2.5 hours away. And we wanted to unite everybody and get everybody so that they could learn, again, maybe what worked well for their office. Maybe we got excited. You guys know when you go to a seminar, you go to an event, there's a certain amount of energy that you get from it. And we're in the middle of this Corona crap. And that finally getting out for the first seminar a couple of weeks ago, just being able to get out, I think that was everybody's first event in 5 months. And just being able to get out gives you that sense of energy. And I wanted to see that for our local chiropractors here in Michigan. So we started the chapter. And it was really cool because I got to actually host a lot of chiropractors, a lot of speakers. They got to stay with us. Some of them stayed with us, some didn't. And I got a little extra because I often got to hang out with them. Of course, there comes its challenges. Running events for chiropractors is probably the worst group of people to be hosting events for. They wait till the last minute to sign up for something, or they might say they're going and then they no-show. But yet, ironically enough, you were to look at their practice, and that's probably what happens in their practice as well, is they expect people to show up, but yet they don't show up themselves. So it's kind of the mirror concept in a way too. It's you got to be able to put your efforts out there if you expect some of that coming in return. So we put a lot of energy and effort out there to run an EPOC, and it was always my favorite night, favorite day of the month. And I'm grateful of all the connections that we made. And through that, of course, I see everybody at other events still too, to this day.
The next question is going to be a lead into what I'm going to say here. And, you said something earlier about the adjusting, and some people saying, hey, I only need to come like every 6 months and I go to the chiropractor, or I go to the chiropractor and it's been 5 years. And one of the things I learned early on in working within the profession was holding is healing. Mm-hmm. And when you get adjusted, the body has a chance to recalibrate, if we can say that, or to realign. And, patterns are the same thing on, like you said, like this little child was not able to walk because the pattern was off. Right. But when you restored the pattern, now we restored the functionality. And people don't really understand that if there's out of pattern, then their body's not going to be able to heal. And it's not about the pain, or it's not about the ear infections. It is, but it's about the pattern of functionality. And it wasn't about your shoulder not being able to serve. It It was about the dysfunction that was coming from the nerves in your spine going to the shoulder. So holding is healing. And when you were getting adjusted, it allowed your body to go back into that pattern of healing, which relieved the pressure off that nerve going to the shoulder. Now you're able to do the overhand serve and go into your collegiate career. So, the next thing I wanted to ask you is, it's kind of teeing it up to you is, what is your chiropractic mantra or quote that keeps you fired up to continuously go out there, go forth and serve and take care of your community?
Yeah. It's really just a never give up attitude. Over 90% of the subluxations are going to be right up here between the ears. And so it comes down to your mindset. Now, let's be honest in this though too. You can't give 100% all the time. You have to have the down times. You got to have your vacations. You got to be able to check out of the office. You can't be married to the practice, then you're never going to be married. And if you look at some of the leaders that have came before us, I'm not judging, and I have no idea what their relationships were like, but for some of them, chiropractic was number one, not always necessarily probably a marriage. And so you have to figure out what that priority is. Now, I'm happy to say I've got a great marriage and a great relationship, but we work on it. And so you got to keep working. And much of that is about your mindset. You have to have the abundant mindset, right? I had to shift my mindset around the way that I viewed money. When I first got into practice, of course, I also learned this during the peak internship and that type of things, that they just passed off the finances onto CA. Well, the reality is who's going to care more about your practice and about your money than you? You should be number one. Yes, you can have people that guide you in the way you handle your money, but growing up, we were, while I was fortunate to be able to do everything, there was a lot that was kind of more of a paycheck to paycheck. And so one of the first things I had to do was to shift my mindset on how I viewed money so that I could accept money and get more. Because the reality is you're being paid for the value that you can give to somebody. It doesn't matter what you're giving them. It doesn't matter if it's an adjustment, if you're giving them advice, coaching, mentorship. You always have to look at this as, how can I provide value? So I came into this going, how could I provide value to listeners that might be watching this? And for me, it's the drive that keeps me going is to never give up. There is, without a doubt, I can explain for the last 5 months of this stuff, I've played down, not just a level, down many levels. And it was Eric Thomas's talk that he was like, you got to give 120%. And I thought to myself, wow, I've been way down. So coming off of the summer camp here, of course, Michigan is one of the worst states that have been hit. Well, here it's one of the worst states, probably number 3 or 4 behind New York, New Jersey, California, something like that. And all I did coming back that first week was just to kind of shift my mindset and just change it into more of an abundant. Guess what? Best week we've had ever. So it's just a shift. That's all it is. But look at Nike, just do it. So never give up. It's go 120%, have an abundant mindset. You figure out a way to put more value out into the universe, and you'll get that in plenty coming back in return.
You made it to ChiroHustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
So I know we touched on this topic a little bit earlier, but now it's time to take the deep dive. And where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years or so?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that maybe the answer is the same right now as what it was before this Corona stuff started. Notice how I have to just say Corona stuff because I don't even know what to call it anymore. But that shift before this Corona stuff, I think I'd still give that same answer. It's just intensified more right now because there's a divide out there in socially. We've created, not you or I, but those have created a social or the new age civil war. It's like a social war, and it's a divide greater. And I think we're on the brink of that, potentially even in chiropractic, is either a big divide, and much of it could be, unfortunately, who's in the political realms of chiropractic, who's heading schools, who's heading boards, the CE, etc. Because if you've got more of a allopathic model or mindset of docs, and they might not always be docs that are a part of these panels, but if they're more allopathically trained or teaching more of that allopathic mindset, you're going to go far. I don't care if it's left or right, whichever way you label this, but they're going one way. Going the other way might be the more the straight chiropractor, the strong philosophical chiropractor. And how are you going to bridge those gaps? I'm not saying that I have the answer, that you guys have the answer. I think some of your simple steps are by putting this content out there. You got to keep putting the content out there because that's what's going to bring people together. Try to go into a debate with somebody that is so pro-vaccine and somebody else is anti-vaccine. You can't bridge the gap between the two. They're so shifted one way or the other. So it's who's in the middle ground that you can try to shift. And it's got to start with schools because that's where a lot of these kids are kids. Gosh, I feel like a kid. But this is where some of these students, the younger ones, are going to start. Just 2 weeks ago, another one of our older practice members, she is now going to chiropractic school. She actually just went down. It's probably starting sometime soon, in the next month or something like that. So it's starting with those people, the young future chiropractors, and we have to get them strong philosophically speaking. There's nothing wrong with taking care of people that are in pain. But if I was left to only get adjusted as I was in pain or I hurt, that did me a dissatisfaction. That's part of my story. But with part of that being my story, gives me that much more energy and enthusiasm to get out there to tell more people so that one more person doesn't have to sit there, be sick, suffering, having ear infections like I had.
Well, you talked a little bit about, the change of the guard in the profession and the divide. And I think we have to understand that it's not like us against them, as kind of was a narrative that I kind of was brought into the profession 11 years ago. And it's not the ego driving, we're better than them, or they're better than us, or the allopathic model is only for this and we're only for this. It's more about understanding that the reason that these methods exist is because people that come into emergency they need certain types of care, and people that come into lifestyle stability care need certain types of care. It's like, why do you brush your teeth twice a day and floss? You know, if you want to continuously have pearly whites, you have to practice certain behaviors around keeping your teeth healthy. And I think that that's really where we have to come in with the educational resources, not only for the next wave of practitioners, but we have to have that educational resource for the connection between other healthcare providers. And I think that not only bringing the young up are the future chiropractors into the fold to know that there might be a divide within the profession where it comes to more of an allopathic style chiropractic or more of a vitalistic style chiropractic. But the thing that I've always told the chiropractic profession that always comes back to the adjustment. As long as chiropractors keep the adjustment as like the holy grail and as like the last frontier for like truth in chiropractic, people are going to continuously shift their mindsets about what's right and what's wrong within like today and tomorrow and yesterday. But when it comes to chiropractic, like the golden seal and like the last frontier is the adjustment.
Absolutely.
And I think that when we talk about, you know, what you're discussing with us is understanding that we are coming into, like you said before we started, like this Generation Z or whatever we want to call it, like the next group of people that aren't going to be high level vocal communicators. But that leads into our next question. They might be high level tech communicators. Mm-hmm. And we have to know that there is a shift within like our communication paradigms. And, you know, down the road, guys like us, they're going to ask us to run boardroom meetings because we can actually talk to people.
Right.
So the way that we were brought up and the way the things that you were doing, like early on in your chiropractic career, you're like, dude, I was gone 2.2 weeks out of the month. And it was because you wanted to go out there and learn how to communicate to your patient base better. You wanted to learn how to, you know, show value. You wanted to learn better technique. You wanted to learn. And I think that that's where we're at right now when we're talking about this where's the profession going in the next 20 years? It's going wherever we tell these stories. And that's to be acknowledged. Because when you were talking earlier about the necessity of telling these stories and continuously putting out content, that's where the profession's going. If we stop, then the story stops. So if we continuously, you know, push the narrative of telling your story and the next person's story and the next 500 people's stories, that's when chiropractic becomes stronger, because now we have a resource for people to say, that guy was telling the truth. And the truth will always prevail.
Right. Right. And that's why, you know, one of the things that I'm proud of, and I'm not here to, I love talking shop, but I don't always like numbers with shop. Okay. However, one of the things that I'm proud of is the ability to retain people, right? Think of any business. It is far easier to keep business than to acquire new business or clients. And so I always focused in on trying to establish good relationships, because the currency today is in the relationship. And so you have to cherish those relationships. So I'm happy to say we've been able to partly stay pretty well with our numbers because of the relationship and the ability to retain people. And I mean, my PVA has been into triple digits. It's always been in triple digits, not always. I mean, when you first start, you have nothing, but it has grown to be in the triple digits. And I think it's key to do that, to keep people active and engaged. Now, with this Generation Z and even acquiring new patients, practice members, whatever you want to do it, you kind of got to do it off of what somebody else's terms are. It's the saying that sell somebody what they want while educating them on what they could have. So when somebody comes into your office, they may have a headache. Well, you got to figure out how you're going to help them with the headache And then you can elaborate with them on why their sinuses are plugged up and how you're helping with that, on how they have more energy, how they're sleeping better because you were able to do that. So it's okay to go allopathic as long as they understand it's the ability of your body to hold the adjustment. Yes, we're always going to need to adjust, but not 3 times a week, not whatever. So it's bringing them in, help focus in on what their attention span is, what they're there for, and then you can bring them to where you want to be or where you want them to be. And so one of the things that I think you're kind of asking is shifting is into this social media atmosphere. There wasn't much, I mean, yes, we had social media when I started, but when I started, Facebook was just a college thing. I got started in Facebook. Oh, interesting point here. I got started with my personal Facebook back in undergrad and college. You had to have a college email attached to that, right? So my login for over 15 years has been my college email. Well, just over a month ago, I got booted from Facebook. They completely deleted my page altogether. I lost everything of 15 years. And they first said there was suspicious activity. Then I was given no warning, nothing. They were checking into it. And then they came back to say that it was irreversible, that I've been deleted from there. And I didn't meet their community standards. So not until maybe that was 6 weeks ago now, not until about 2 weeks ago that I got started with a new page, because we have so much to connect on Facebook. And right now with this crap that's going on, you need to be engaged with people. I say we hit our highest week here last week, yet I have a list of people that haven't been in, that we're here every week or that I need to touch base with on them. But we've been so busy, and much of it's been coming through Facebook. I mean, my new patient slots have been getting filled. And so that's a good problem to have. I'm off topic, so bring me back on topic.
So would you say Facebook is your favorite way to market your practice, or do you have other ways that work better sometimes?
Yeah, Facebook can be one of those. It's probably one of the better avenues now. You can't just to think that you could only be like a referral only practice is the wrong mindset to have. Like, no business would say, hey, I'm only going to deal with only this type of a referral source, right? You want to diversify your referral sources. Sure, they can come from patients, but there's no patients when you start. Of course, unless you're buying a practice, which isn't a bad thing. We've looked at buying some other practices. It's okay if you want to go that route, but if you're starting from scratch, like many people, you've got to hit the streets running. You gotta go. Right now, there's next to no streets that you can go to. We used to do talks were one of the big things, and still talks are to this day. But it's hard for me to go into X company and let them know about the workshops and health talks that we do, to go in and educate their communities, because if they're even have employees coming to their work still, because many of them are working from home, they're definitely not letting somebody come in to go speak to their group right now. So the question right now is probably different because of what's going on in our current society right now. But Facebook is one. I would say this, it depends on where your target market and or ideal client is going to be. Some of them could be on Instagram. There's some people, especially moms, women, do far better with Facebook, or I'm sorry, with Instagram than they might with Facebook. And I don't have Snapchat, but I'm learning that that's a good source too. So for us, it's been more the Facebook. The hard thing is I created a private group a few years back to put all of our practitioners into it to keep them engaged, because you want to put them into your sphere where you can influence them. Of course, I lost the access to that when Facebook deleted me. So I have a little sense of maybe animosity against the Zuck's team right now, because I was banned.
Well, I'm going to touch on a couple things that you said there and maybe give some clarity to people that listen to this episode this far down the line. Is you have to own your email list. Yeah. And when you depend on a social media platform, that can be, like you experienced, removed from you with the blink of an eye, with no real recourse to reestablish where you once were. So I understand it's a give and take when it comes to how we can attribute our reach on social media platforms, but it's not there forever. And there's a whole bylaw of things that I agree to when we set up our accounts that we never read. And I think that when people realize that your email list is your gold. So when it comes to what you're doing and what you just mentioned to me, reactivation, like you said, it's easier to keep somebody in your business than going looking for new ones, especially right now, unless you are able to leverage Facebook ads and have them be productive for you. But the other side of that is email marketing, reactivating those people that you haven't seen in a while. Dude, you're going to double your practice. And that's really where your gold mine is. It's in the assets of your database. And that's something a lot of people aren't talking about right now. But what you have as your database of your past clients of emails, that is probably your greatest asset that you'll ever own, because no one can take that from you. And those people are your patient files. And under HIPAA laws, those are yours, and that's your property, and that's your information, and it's your database. So relying on the social media platforms is something that we can learn to leverage. But I believe it's the same way. You have to have 7 streams of new patients. You can't go back to one stream of new patients. It's like if somebody wants to become very wealthy, they have to have 7 streams of income. Well, if somebody wants to be highly effective at chiropractic practice, they have to have 7 streams of new patients. Whether it's talks, whether it's dinner with the docs, whether it's the Tuesday night workshops, Facebook ads, Instagram, Snapchat, email, whatever it might be. You can go do chiropractic screenings, massage events, whatever under the sun that you could imagine that you can incorporate into your office. But you have to figure out, where are my skill sets? Where do they work best? And then you have to learn out how to, as we say, leverage those resources to your good. And not only to your good, but to the people that need you's good. And you might have to go back to door knocking. Who knows? Or you might have to go to what Fred Schofield teaches, is give out 4 cards a week and ask them to give them out to their friends and family and get referrals that way. It could be so many different things, but you have to realize that the gold is in the people that you've taken care of for the past decade. And those people are the ones that you have to reach out to again and extend the olive branch and say, hey, I know we might not have seen you for a while. If you had any kind of concerns going on, and maybe it's not the right time for you, but maybe you know somebody that needs us. So that relationship capital that you were talking about earlier is now more than ever, we have to cash that in.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I went off a little bit there too.
You're good. I loved it. I was right there with you.
But that's where my genius comes in, is because I pay attention to this landscape of chiropractic and I understand where the pain points are. And now I'm speaking to the audience that needs to hear this stuff that I might not share all the time, because I really want to hear the people tell their stories. But I believe sometimes if I don't connect these dots of what's going on in here, the then the people out there listening might not get that message and say, you know what, I do need 7 streams of new patients. And if I'm paying attention to only referral-based practice, then I am old school and I'm not evolving with the future of chiropractic marketing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I just had a kind of a friend who has recently been in touch with me about some of the Facebook stuff. And here he was used to just working off of referrals, but of course, most practices were down quite significantly here in Michigan. And so he's like, well, what can I do to get back going? And I just, I gave him an introduction to somebody. And I saw him this weekend, and he said he's had 16 people come in 3 weeks that he wouldn't have ever had before. So it's just this is the thing. What we're talking about now, maybe not next week, but soon could be outdated, and that's what's nice about you guys is you're analyzing data, you're analyzing what's new and what's going to be coming, because Facebook could go dead after a while, and so you have to have, just like we have to provide a specific adjustment that helps the body adapt. We have to adapt to our ways of doing things, whether that's marketing, recommendations, connecting with Gen Zs, etc.
So
I like the word adapt, by the way. Adaptability is a big word for me.
Well, you have to get lead gen, and it has to be conversion. And that's the language that people need to talk about, like from this day forward for the next, like, I don't know how many years. But if you can lead gen and you can convert, you can build a business. Bottom line.
Yep.
So in your spare time, what kind of books do you like to read? What do you feed your brain?
Yeah. I could not tell you any regular novel that I've read. All mine is off of personal development. In what can I do to improve me? Some of it's been business books, because I got into chiropractic not because I wanted to make money or because of having a business. That just fell into my lap, and you have to do that. So I had to learn the business side, of course, like many of us. I had to learn all of that. So let me look here and show you. I have a list of, I'm doing Audible now, because with 3 kids, it's hard for me to always sit down and read a book. And in my spare time, when I can, one of my favorite things to do outside of adjusting or being with her family is being in the woods hunting. So I put my headphones on, and I get to sit there and wait. And ironically enough, all but like 2 deer that I've shot out of the last, I don't know, 7-8 years, I've been listening to something while I've shot them. So one of my favorites is about habits. I think it's Atomic Habits. Yep, Atomic Habits. That was a good one, because we all fall into bad habits. It doesn't matter if it's in your business, habits with exercise, you name it. So Atomic Habits, and there's 7 habits of highly effective people. Of course, I like some of the rah-rah pick-me-up stuff. There's some Grant Cardone, Gary Vee stuff, Psychology of Selling. There's the Think and Grow Rich, Grant Cardone's Be Obsessed or Be Averaged. There's the Art of the Closing of the Sale, Brian Tracy. He's got stuff out there, Crushing It, Gary Vee. But my more favorite one lately has been, here it is, High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. He was good. I also recently listened to Magnetic Marketing. That's with Dan Kennedy. And then I listened to Book Yourself Solid recently. Right now, a friend just got me on Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He said it was one of the best books he's recommended that to me, actually at summer camp there. And so I just started into that. And you know what? It's all about constantly learning and figuring out it's always being a student. I always view myself as always being a student. What can I keep learning? I'll be the first one taking notes at a seminar or an event. And if there's only one thing that I get out of it, because I've listened to just about everybody through the last decade, I'll get something out of it.
So what websites can people go to if they want to learn more about you and what you're doing?
If they want to connect with me, probably on Facebook, that's fine. It's Jed Emms. And I had to put DC at the end of this. I had to create a separate Facebook, separate from, I had to first start with a separate email, of course, and then a separate Facebook, but that all had to be created from a computer and internet or IP address that I had never been on. That's what was recommended. Once you create it, you can go back to some of your phones and things that you've been on there before. But the way they suggested keeping your new Facebook is to start it that way. So Facebook is good. I've been starting to dabble into the Instagram. What is it right now? I think it's just Dr. Jed Emms is the name. That's probably the best way to connect.
Well, at the end of this interview, we always give you the opportunity to share with us. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I think it's more about helping people connect, whether it's connect with local chiropractors. The amount of chiropractors that don't get adjusted on a regular basis is absurd to me. And I mean, how can you recommend to your patients, but yet not do what you would do for them? But connect with people, engage. It's this social distancing thing is disengaging everybody. We're social beings. We're meant to be active, to be engaged. I think I'll kind of conclude this a little bit by saying everybody knows something that they should be doing. And instead of should, we just need to start taking action. It's that just do it, like Nike. There's so much that comes from some of those little phrases. It's cool, which, by the way, just do it and all. Think of that. It's 3 things. Just do it. You're going to start seeing things after today that come in 3s. Domino's is in 3s. Adidas has 3 stripes, right? There's the power of 3. And so I think that you need to step outside of your comfort zone, engage with people, interact with them, do something that you wouldn't normally do. And you just got to have that head down, that abundant mindset, like we talked about. And I guess I'm pretty much recapping some of what we talked about. So the answer is no. I don't have really necessarily anything new.
Well, Dr. Jed, thank you very much for being our guest today. This was a good one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. You guys keep rocking out. Keep sharing with everybody else, because you never know that one person that's going to watch one of your interviews that might either inspire them to be a chiropractor. It might inspire them to get into the chiropractic profession like you guys, that you don't have to be a chiropractor to, or it might inspire them to share some interview and somebody may have heard about how ear infections could help somebody else. So you guys keep striving for more, keep hustling, keep doing what you do. and do it at 120%. So with that, love, peace, chiropractic.
Love you, brother. Thank you for being our guest today. And we want you to have an amazing rest of your day and week. And looking forward to connecting with you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Looking forward. Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to ChiroHustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.